Before we begin, I invite you to gently close your ears and focus on what remains when all external sounds fade away. It's like sitting in a quiet room, and after a while, you notice a subtle ringing or hum beneath the silence. If you listen closely, you'll start to experience this soft, constant presence, something that feels like the very fabric of reality itself. In quantum physics, it's said that everything is connected at the most fundamental level, and that everything we see is just a manifestation of deeper, unseen energy. What you are hearing, or rather feeling, is that same energy, that same field of potential. This subtle ringing is what we call the sound of silence. It's not just an abstract concept or some external force. It's the very essence of you. Everything we discuss in this session and the ones to come will be about this sound of silence. It is not something separate or different from you. It is you. This exploration is about realizing that the sound of silence is your own inner being, your most fundamental nature, the stillness from which all life arises. You are that, the very presence behind everything. Experience is immediate, direct, and unmediated, while knowledge often relies on external inputs, memories, or learned information. I would describe this using the example of asking a child about deep sleep. When I ask what was there during deep sleep, the child says nothing. This implies someone was aware of the nothingness. The idea is that even in deep sleep, consciousness remains, witnessing the absence of thoughts or experiences. This leads to a deeper question. If I were not present, who would have known there was nothing? This is where experience comes into play. It's not something I just believe or know intellectually. It's what I directly experience. In deep sleep, I am alive. I experience a form of consciousness, but it is a state free from sensations and thoughts. This conscious awareness is not dependent on external stimuli. It's often said that we confuse our awareness of thoughts, feelings, and sensations with consciousness itself. When I say I am, it is a thought. But who is aware of that thought? The one who knows is beyond the thought. This is consciousness. Consciousness doesn't disappear during deep sleep. It is simply not engaged with external experiences. This consciousness is also present during waking moments, witnessing thoughts and sensations. Even when anesthesia is administered and I lose awareness of my body, consciousness remains, detached from bodily sensations. This detachment doesn't mean death. It's a state where the body may not feel, but consciousness is still present. It becomes clear that when I detach from sensations, I'm still conscious. This uncouples the idea that consciousness depends on bodily sensations. When I examine the difference between knowledge and experience, I realize that knowledge comes through the mind. For instance, when asked if a bottle is present, I respond based on my memory or learned knowledge. I know what a bottle is because I've learned this through my experiences. However, the actual experience of the bottle doesn't depend on this knowledge. If I see the bottle without thinking or labeling it, it's just a direct experience. This brings me to the idea of immediate experience, which is unmediated, direct, and pure. There are no thoughts or words between me and the experience. In contrast, mediated experience involves a filter, my senses, thoughts, or interpretations, between me and the experience. In deep sleep, this direct, unmediated experience occurs. I'm conscious, but there is no mental interference or labeling. This is the purest form of consciousness. However, in waking life, I experience consciousness both mediated through thoughts, sensations, and unmediated as pure awareness. This brings us to an important distinction. The observer, who is aware of everything happening, is not the same as the mind, which reacts to sensations and thoughts. The observer is pure consciousness. In deep sleep, this observer remains even when there are no objects of observation. Even in anesthesia, when the body doesn't react to pain, the observer is still present. This observer is not the same as the mind, which reacts with thoughts, feelings, and sensations. The observer is untouched by these changes. When I delve into meditation, I aim to enter a state where I become the observer without identifying with the mind's reactions. This state is choiceless awareness, where I simply witness without judgment. Sometimes in meditation, the mind gets involved, and I may experience sensations or thoughts, but I remain conscious of them. The process of watching without reacting frees me from the influence of the mind. At times, I notice that sensations or thoughts arise and fade without any cause or effect. I may think of a name or an image, and I understand that these thoughts arise from the mind's habitual patterns. However, I can observe them without becoming attached or involved in the mental process. The mind creates a loop of desire and reaction. If I think of a pleasant memory, I may desire to relive that experience. If I think of something unpleasant, I may feel fear. But these reactions are not the essence of consciousness. They are products of the mind. Consciousness, as the observer, remains unaffected by the mind's movements. When I am deeply absorbed in the mind's reactions, I may forget this. However, true consciousness is always there, quietly observing. I often confuse the mind's activity with consciousness. For instance, when I dream, the mind creates vivid images and stories, but who is aware of the dream? It is consciousness, the same consciousness that is present when I am awake. The difference between waking, dreaming, and deep sleep is simply the level of mental activity. In deep sleep, mental activity stops, but consciousness remains. Waking and dreaming are states where the mind becomes active again. Consciousness is always present, whether the mind is active or not. This leads to the realization that true consciousness is beyond the states of waking, dreaming, or sleeping. It is not affected by whether I am aware of sensations, thoughts, or nothingness. In ancient wisdom, it's said that what appears as reality to most people is actually a form of ignorance. People are awake to the external world, but asleep to the reality of consciousness. When I wake up to the true nature of consciousness, I realize that it is unaffected by the states of mind. The world may be asleep to this truth, but consciousness is ever awake, witnessing the world's ignorance. This ignorance is not the absence of knowledge, it is the misunderstanding of who I am. I often think of myself as my mind, body, or personality, but true consciousness transcends these. In deep meditation or introspection, I may catch glimpses of this truth. I realize that I am not the thoughts or feelings that arise, but the one who is aware of them. At times I may feel peaceful when I detach from the mind's activity, but this peace is temporary if it depends on external circumstances. True peace comes from realizing that consciousness is unaffected by these changes. When I fully understand this, I realize that the observer is free from the mind's influence. The mind may still react to external events, but I, as consciousness, remain free from these reactions. This understanding doesn't mean that I no longer feel pain or pleasure. Rather, I recognize that these sensations are part of the mind's reactions, not the essence of who I am. The experience of deep sleep offers a glimpse into this reality. In deep sleep, the mind shuts down, but I am still there as pure awareness. When I wake up, the mind resumes its activity, and I may become identified with it again. However, I can learn to remain aware of my true nature, even in the waking state. This is the essence of self-realization. I begin to see that the mind's activity is like a movie playing on a screen. The movie may be exciting, dramatic, or dull, but the screen remains unaffected. Similarly, consciousness remains untouched by the mind's drama. When I fully grasp this, I begin to live from a place of true freedom. This freedom is not about escaping the world or avoiding pain. It is about understanding that my true nature is beyond the mind's reactions. I may still feel emotions, but I don't get lost in them. I remain the observer, free and untouched. This is the essence of spiritual awakening, realizing that I am consciousness, not the mind, and living from that truth. The mind will continue to play its role, but I am no longer enslaved by it. I am awake, free, and fully conscious of my true nature. This understanding transforms the way I experience life. I am no longer trapped in the cycle of desire and fear. I am free.